Well, if we think 10 years back, it was 2005. So was the world a whole lot different in 2005 compared to now? What do you think?
A little bit.
A little bit. You know. It's not a whole lot different. So when you think about 2025, 2025 is today, but then everything works. That's actually the thing. You know, it's like almost the same, but then everything works. It's the things that we dream about, and then we build them, and then we tested them, and then we work them. So the interesting thing is that if you introduce a new idea today, and we're 10 years in the future, then people might just be using it every day. Whereas now you really have to introduce it. So what do I want to do? I want to talk about the why, the what, and the how of the changes that we're working on. And I think I really love to be here, because it's very, very important what you're doing. And I'm going to actually hope to get the point across that this is a major, let's say, task that we have to fulfill for society. So without further ado, there's two drivers for the big changes ahead. So now I'm going to talk about your future, not my future. I'm going to talk about the future of, in this case, the Netherlands, but actually all of the European countries. And the first one is demographics. We all, of course, know this. This is the population build-up of the Netherlands. So there's more older people and fewer younger people. That's quite simple. You can actually, as an abstract idea, you can understand it. But what are the consequences of this, for instance, in this case, for healthcare? Well, the Ministry of the Interior of the Netherlands actually decided to look into this, and they determined the consequences of the demographics for the workplace. And they said, well, suppose that in 2010, we set the number of people that work in government and education at 100%. Then in 2020, about 30% of these people will be retired. So that's the normal outflow. But we will not have enough young professionals to replace them. So that means that government and education will have fewer employees. But that is not the only exit that we will see. The next exit is much more severe, and that is an exit because in 2025, let's say 2025, 2030, the Netherlands and all of the European countries will be run by fewer professionals than today. So the labor market will have a shortage, a structural shortage compared to today. And that means that the people that then work, the young professionals that are you, they can choose where they want to work, because we really need every professional. Of course, today we have unemployment, we think that it's very severe, but that's due to economic circumstances. I'm talking about 10 years ahead. And so in 10 years ahead, there will be a structural shortage of labor or professionals in the market. And so that means that when professionals can choose where they want to go to work, they work in places that are interesting, not necessarily the government or education. And so then the Ministry of the Interior actually then figured out that there will be an extra exit for those sectors in society that are not really, really attractive to work in. And the research was for education and government, and I also always include healthcare. So what you then get is that you get a society that misses professionals, structurally. So we have half the civil servants, we have half the teachers, and we have half the healthcare professionals in 10 or 15 years' time. So that means that if you look, and then of course they kind of recalculated this whole thing, so it was 70% and they took it to a little bit less. So if you look at, and this is in Dutch, if you look at the extra pressure on healthcare, the extra pressure if you compare for all of these illnesses, and this is heart failure, dementia, stroke, coronary heart disease, COPD, which is a breath-related disease, osteoporosis, and this is other elderly sicknesses. There will be, because there are more older people in society, in 2025, there will be almost 50% more patients in the hospitals on these illnesses. And of course, then, if we had all of the people to take care of them, that wouldn't be a problem. But at the same time, we have a looming shortage of 450,000 healthcare professionals in the Netherlands in the same period of time. And so there you see that in European societies that all have this buildup of many older people and fewer younger people, there is a rift. There's a major structural problem appearing. And that's your problem. You're going to solve that problem. We're all, of course, all together going to work there, but I'm retired at the time. So that means that for young professionals today, you will actually solve that problem. And so the stuff that you're working on today is part of that solution. because you're trying to do stuff that people can use to take care of their own health. And as simple as the task may be, and as simple as your solutions may seem, those are the new solutions that are needed in a problem that we cannot solve. It's very hard to solve. Simply put, we can say that in 10 or 15 years' time, the hospital will be half empty. We will only have left half of the professionals. So when you're sick or you're married and you have children and your children are sick, there will be no general practitioners because we only have half of them left. It's a very serious situation. And so we really, really, really need your kind of work. So that is why public health is getting a new kind of urgency. Of course, public health is very, very important today, but it will have a completely new urgency in 10 or 15 years' time. So so the answer in Holland, but also in other countries, is what we call the participation society. And in the participation society, we say, well, of course, professionals cannot do all the work. We think that citizens should do more on their own. So we call that in Dutch, we call it eigen regie en eigen verantwoordelijkheid. You know, you're your own director of your healthcare, or also in the future of your safety, and then you have individual responsibility. So we have, policymakers have a solution. And they say, well, those major sectors that actually are the sectors that uphold the quality of life. So it means that government and healthcare uphold the quality of life in the country. And of course the services do all of the economics and the industrial sector, but they uphold the quality of life. And all of the professionals in there will only, the whole sector will work at half capacity. And so then, of course, the people in the Netherlands, the citizens in all of the Netherlands and in all of the European countries need to do more themselves. How are they going to do that? Suppose that you have a child and it's handicapped and there's nobody to help you taking care of it. How are you going to do that? Suppose that you have a child and it's autistic and you don't really know how to deal with an autistic child. And when children are young, they develop very rapidly, so they're completely different children in a couple of years' time. So you have to become really knowledgeable about autism. But there's no healthcare professionals to help you. There's no GGD to help you, because they only have half of their capacity. And so then all of your solutions that allow me, that empower me to do something for myself are really, really important. They are going to make all of the difference. Of course, when we can't or when we won't, things get rough. There was the former director of the Sociaal Cultureel Planbureau, the planning agency for social and cultural affairs, once said in a byline, there will be a time, and this shows how serious this development is, there will be a time in the Netherlands where people will be dying in the streets. It's a very serious situation. And so that means that there will be people or neighborhoods or parts of cities that will not be able to actually do everything themselves, that will not even be able to understand their problem, that will not be able to, even if they understand their problem, get the knowledge and understand what they then need to do. They're not able to structure their own life or to structure their own life around healthcare. So that's a serious situation. It's a very, very serious situation. So the strength of society is really, really important. And so what we're doing partly here, and that's part of my work, and I'll show you how my work actually then adopts this challenge and tries to work towards solutions. So my background is information society, so I'm going to show you a couple of trends in the information society, also to tell you where we are. We're in the Netherlands, and as you see here, the Netherlands ranks #1 worldwide in the penetration of Twitter and LinkedIn. Together with South Korea, we're the country that is most advanced in the information society. If I talk to researchers in Microsoft in Seattle, they say we look at 2 countries in the world to look to the future of the information society, South Korea and the Netherlands. And that's for many, many different reasons. I'm not going to go into those. So we have the highest number of web shops per capita. We have the highest number of online therapies per capita. We are 1 on Twitter and LinkedIn. So there's lots of stuff that we did that, of course, for all of the Dutch people in the room are very, very normal. For instance, we had 9 million people that had Hives accounts. Hives was a Facebook-like service when it still existed. Of course, now we all smile when we think about Hives because it very quickly went away. But there's no other country in the world where people actually meet each other in the street and said, well, I saw something really funny on the internet. It's called Hives. I don't know what it is, but I made a page. And instead of saying, well, that's really stupid that you made a page, we go home and also make a page. You know, we go like, Well, I'm going to try this thing. You know, we're very pragmatic. That is very, very important if you make solutions that use information technology. All of the people in the Netherlands are online, apart from the people above 80, 78. All of the people to 75 cannot be without the internet. They actually have to be connected to the internet all the time. The highest percentage of people that do telebanking is above 55, 65. So you do lots of stuff on the internet, but don't think that the elderly people don't do anything. We have the most web shops per capita in the Netherlands. So these are the trends that in information technology. We will have a smart world, we will have smart data, and we will have a smart web. And I'll give you a couple of examples. This, of course, is called the quantified self. And this means that we will actually be able to measure almost anything that we do. So I have my motion tracker in my telephone always on. We can put this to good use. So 2 years ago, in 10 weeks' time, with 3 students, I made an app for an iPhone that actually tracked the quality of a step 20 times a second. And we use that for Parkinson patients. You know, you see Parkinson patients shake a little bit, sometimes their hands shake, but other Parkinson patients cannot walk. So they start to dribble a little bit and then they fall over. So we had patients falling 12 times a day. But when they put this thing in the phone with the app on, when they started to actually walk difficultly and almost fall, the app would start a metronome. Tick, 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 and they would remember to really step forward. And so after they started the app, they wouldn't fall. So now you can see that with an idea, in 10 weeks' time, with 2 technology students and 1 web designer, you can make a fully functional app. Well, what could we do when everybody starts to do that? So this is actually a medical platform. This is a medical platform. So when I talk to this phone, I'll show you the phone. This is my phone. See? I can talk to the phone. Should I take an umbrella?
Why, yes, it does seem to be raining.
Where's the nearest doctor?
Here is what I found.
How's your day?
I feel good.
Do you like me?
Thy friendship makes us fresh.
Tell me a joke.
2 iPhones walk into a bar. I forget the rest.
Tell me a joke.
Or get serious.
Make an appointment with my wife.
Okay, when's the appointment?
Tomorrow at lunch.
Okay, what time is the appointment?
Noon.
All right, Bert, I'll leave it off your calendar.
Yeah.
No.
Because he thinks he says no. What are the symptoms of bronchitis?
Let me think. Okay, I found this.
Now here we have something that is really serious. This is the next phase of the web. It's called the semantic web. So what you see is I get the sentence back. Of course I got all my sentences back. That is a miracle in its own right. It sends the sound file to the internet. It does all the processing and gives me the words back. But we already accept that as being normal. But then it did input interpretation. And so what it did here, and you see this here, it actually came back, computer decided with 2 concepts, acute bronchitis and symptoms reported at visit. That's a thing that the computer did. So this is actually what you see will happen in the future. So we're working with the GGD in The Hague now to answer the question, is there griep here? Do we have a flu here in the area? And then we hope to get an answer, say yes or no. We would also like to answer the question, is it safe here? You know, you're in a foreign town, you're in a bar, it's 1:30 at night, you walk out of the bar and you don't know, I have no idea. You know. Go like, is this safe? And it says, well, you better take a cab. So it doesn't come back with any statistics, it's just because, that's why I played a little bit. This is a front end that tries to be really humane and user-friendly and you can converse with it. Autistic children love this thing because they can keep asking questions all day and it always gives the same answers. And when they start to swear, say, well, you're not supposed to use those words. And when they start to swear again, they say, I just told you, you're not supposed to use these words. Very good. Their mother had been doing that for 15 years and almost died doing it. So this is a little bit about the technology. The Quantify itself actually can then be used with phones, and then you get all of these different other services. This is my Quantified Life, this is mobile information, cloud and social. The sheet is in here. We're not going to do anything on the sheet, but you can maybe get ideas. This is something else that will happen, the Internet of Things. This is an expectation of the things that are connected to the Internet. All of you, if you have a smartphone, are connected to the Internet. But in the future, everything will be connected to the Internet. Buildings will be connected to the Internet. Parking places will know that they exist and whether there's a car on them. Dustbins will be connected to the Internet and say when they're full or not. So this is the estimate of the number of things that will be connected to the Internet. And the line is 2050. And so in 2025, we will have a tenfold increase in things that are connected to the Internet. So for your app, what things are then connected to the Internet when you actually envision a future? So these are all examples of things that are being worked on now or are on the Internet right now. And this will just explode. And then, of course, it's not a simple problem. So I added a slide of all of the health-related issues that will change due to this, due to the Internet connections, due to the Internet of Things. It's not we don't know what will happen next. We're just trying to feel ourselves forward. So the information technologist, even if though it's my field, I can't predict what will happen. So we need all of the intelligence that we can get. So this is the estimate of the change in information in 10 years' time. So this is the amount of information, the increase in information, and of course we'll measure that in a different way. So now, this is gigabytes, this is terabytes, so that's now the hot thing, of course. And then here we have petabytes, here we have exabytes, here we have zettabytes, here we have yottabytes, and here we have brontobytes. Of course, we will not make this thing. See, that's my PC, I use my PC. I had to make a backup the other day. There's more than 2.5 million files on the PC. It's not my fault, I didn't do it. I don't type very fast, I just use it for typing in the internet, and there's 2.5 million files on there. I have no idea how they got there. The number of hours that we upload to YouTube is about 30 hours of video per minute, every day. So we create an immense amount of information, and that creates a challenge for the people that have to store it, but that's not our challenge. What we can do is use the information to actually create better healthcare. What information would I need in my neighborhood? I live in Bussum, which is close to Amsterdam. Let's take an example. I would be willing to eat with elderly people that live alone in my neighborhood, were I to know that that more and more people are really suffering from their solitude. So the fact that they're by themselves and they have no social infrastructure. It would actually be a really good idea to eat with them 4 times a year. I don't. I have no idea whether there are any people, who they are, whether it's on the rise or declining. So I don't know what the state of the healthcare is in my neighborhood. So I don't get the idea to do something about it. So what information would I need to become aware of healthcare problems? And how would I need the information so that I then become motivated to do something about it? Of course, I'm well educated. We did the same thing in a very difficult neighborhood in Delft, assuming that we had a shortage of general practitioners and the GGD wasn't there. So how in a neighborhood of 5,000 people would people get the idea that their child might be too fat, too obese? How would you get the idea that the child is too obese? If you're from a Suriname background, then it's actually very good to be heavy set. If you're from an African background, then it's actually culturally the sign of that you're rich or well-fed to be obese. So how would you get the idea that your child is obese, and maybe it's so obese that you should do something about it? And how do you then get the idea if you have an IQ of 100 or lower? Because of course all of us in the room have an IQ above 100. The IQ, the division, let's say the way the IQ is appearing in society is that it's evenly distributed. So half the population has an IQ above 100 and half the population have an IQ below 100. And if you really want to know what an IQ below 100 is, I suggest that you go and watch the small films of the girls in Lekker Slim. Lekker Slim was a TV show 2 years ago with stupid blonde girls. Sorry for the blonde girls, but they were stupid actually. They were actually so stupid that if you asked them a simple question, you could not predict the answer. And then the whole game show was that there were 3 groups of boys, and if they predicted the answer right, they got points. So they were so stupid, you couldn't, well, I have the movies here, but we're not going to look at them. So, but if you, and that's, I often look at them with my students, because if you're so stupid, the women look, they're completely okay. They're either a hairdresser, or they live in they're a store attendant, or whatever. They have children, and the children might be obese, or they have asthma, they have a text form to fill in. You know, they do all the tests, but they're really, really stupid. So when you make a website for a person that is really stupid, something completely different happens in the mind of that person than in your head. So any designer that makes a first design always designs for him or herself. You always design, you know, for kind of the world that you live in. Of course, the world that you live in is determined by the world and by you, how you see it, how you were educated, how intelligent you are. But if you're not intelligent, you have a completely different world. So when you make a design, and it's, for instance, for the elderly or for mantelzorg, make sure that you keep in mind that half the population has a lower IQ. And one of the big distinctions between smart and stupid is that when you're smart, you think more abstractly, and when you're stupid, in technical terms. I'm not talking about personal qualities here. And when you're stupid, when you're less smart, you think in concrete terms. You react to the concrete terms. There's no abstraction. They don't know what a healthcare sector is. They know what a doctor is. And they assume that the doctor has a white coat on. Well, these days they don't, but they used to have. So, this is a slide of what is needed for big data. We have all this data, and then we have to understand the data. The computer just understood my sentence, and then we have to actually make use and analyze the data, and of course that's what we're going to do in the next phase of the web. So this is what in 10 years time the web will do. The web was started in 1994, we made websites, and then in the first period we connected information. In the second 10 years of the web we connected people, and now we will have a phase where we will connect knowledge. And you just saw me connect to knowledge. What are the symptoms of bronchitis? I asked a knowledge question, and it didn't search for all, I didn't take the letters of bronchitis, it made a concept of bronchitis and then searched for it. Of course, we will do the same thing with grippe. This will take about 10 years, and then we will be there. So if you plan for something, and it has information technology, and you want to use the things that will happen in the next 5 to 10 years, you might use them. So in 2025, we use those possibilities. So what will we do? This is a digital citizen, I didn't translate this. And the digital citizen uses lots of services. Suppose that you're sick, or as most of the elderly, you have 4 illnesses. Most of the elderly have something with their heart, something with their blood pressure, something with their breath, and they have something with their joints. Something is wrong. So that means that you have then portals for the general practitioner, for a physiotherapist, you have a portal for a hospital. In the hospital, you have contact with at least 4 specialists, and then you have the guy that sells you the medicine. And that's then, besides having contact with all of your family and your friends and whatever. So that means that only for software portals I already use 5, 6, 7 different things. And I have to keep track of my passwords and which appointment was in which website, because they don't match to my agenda. And then I will start to use these. I will have my weight measured, I will have the number of steps, the energy that I use, maybe I have a blood pressure. It's very, very interesting cuffs. So when I'm elderly, I might be using 15 or 20 different digital things that I depend on that do not talk to each other, and I don't understand them because I just turned 84 and my wife is 81 and we really love each other, but things go really slowly, you know, and I had a stroke, so I don't understand stuff. And then I'm stuck with these 15 digital things. So that's going to be a major problem, because we need them to work with the digital things, because I don't have any doctors left. So now you see the challenges that come ahead, and your stuff often actually helps me to do something in such a situation. So your stuff is apart from being a small project from 10 weeks and then it's an example or something, it's exemplary for the kinds of things that will be mainstream in those 10 or 15 years. So we need all of these suggestions really be thought out, really go hunt for the user, really get a good feel for the patient. So this is one project that we do. We envision then in 15 years' time for people that need rehabilitation. They had a car accident, they had a stroke, they have a half side of their body is lame, and there's no professionals. So what we do is we create a digital rehabilitation environment for them at home. And so we think, well, there's a couple. This is in Dutch. There's a couple of simple things that we measure. We usually measure this, and then we need it actually to present that in a really good way for the patient. Every general practitioner in the Netherlands has about 2,500 or 3,000 patients. Now suppose that about 50% have something with their heart and they need to measure their blood pressure. Now suppose that the patients of the single general practitioner have 35 different blood pressure meters. That's really confusing, because then he has to get used to 35 meters and one is okay and one is not okay and one is... So apart from being really concerned about the patient, we also need to be concerned about the professional. What does the professional do with all that information? So if any of you do something digital and you ask the people to communicate, not amongst themselves, but maybe with a professional, you have to think about what happens with the information at the professional side, because he has possibly thousands of patients sending data back. You can't imagine what it means for a hospital. In a hospital, big hospital, they have about 10,000 patients per year. In the eye hospital here in Utrecht, they have 70,000 patients per year. What will happen if 70,000 patients all of a sudden start to send digital data back to the hospital? Nobody ever thought about that. Patients are patients, and they're actually digitally, of course they talk and they have all kinds of problems or whatever, but digitally they're silent, they do nothing. At home they do Facebook and whatever, but they don't do anything back. When all of these patients, which is about 17 million people in the Netherlands, when all of these patients send the data back, that's a major problem. So there's another problem that another challenge that we have to do it at the level of the organization. So there's a whole series of things that will develop when all of the stuff that you propose will really scale up, when we will really use them. It will be interesting if you take that into account. If you say, well, of course, we're not going to make it, so what you do is you do proposals and concept studies, probably. So you can propose that you thought about it, and then that the organization of the data, when thousands of people use your app for whatever reason, or any other digital service, that you looked at it. So this is the question of, is there flu here? So how will we answer that? Well, we have data collections, of course, and then we envisioned that the flu being one of 1,000 questions. And so what we need to do here is we need to actually build up the ability to answer the question. Is there flu here? So I went to the GGD, I said I'd do the project with the GGD, and the GGD has data about the flu. But you know that when you catch the flu, you have the flu in about 2-3 days. So I need information of today. And when you go to the GGD, they have information of 4 weeks old or maybe 8 weeks old. When you go to the RIVM, which is the National Institute for Infectious Diseases, they also have 4 weeks old, 8 weeks old. So that's useless for this question. So when you make something and the patient asks something, you really have to think, how soon does he need the information? How much of the information does he need? Because now we ask the reverse question, where in society is the information about the flu today? Well, I have the information, and the general practitioner has some of the information, because some people came by and they had the flu today. So then we have to ask the general practitioners, between now and in 10 years' time, to send the data about really, really fast developing infectious diseases, send them the same day to a place. And a place is then the place that I can actually get the data from. But how do I get the data? Well, the ability to answer the question, I have to define the concept flu. But if I ask the question, is there flu here? Of course, the telephone knows where I am. Is there flu here? I actually mean, is there a flu epidemic? So the concept flu is too little. I need to define what an epidemic is. Well, the epidemic is the cases of the flu, the incidences of the flu per 1,000 people, whatever. So then I need to know how many that is. So we'll need to make the calculations, and then we need to point the calculations. Where do I get the population from? Where do I get the instances of the flu from? And where do I get the geolocation from? And then I have to conclude. Well, the conclusion, of course, determines on, is depending on me. Am I susceptible to the flu? Do I have a good health? So this is very complex. This is what we do when we build up in the next 10 to 15 years' time an open data society. This is what we will do. We will define the concept of safety. We will define how you then calculate safety, and then we will say that I need to take a cab, because it knows that I can pay for the cab. So this is a development that we're building up. So you see that I sketch a major challenge. The major challenge is the number of professionals declining in the healthcare sector. I sketch trends of rapidly evolving information technology, and now I'm trying to bring the two together. And they're actually quite practical. How do we ask for the flu? Because if I'm an older person, I would like an answer. So this is the architecture, this is the work that needs to be done in the next 10 to 15 years, and then we do that on these different areas. So living in a participation society, that's a remnant of the Dutch word leven. Living in a participation society, I need knowledge. I need to know how to do things. My wife is ill. She needs to be in bed because she's ill, and she needs to lie really flat, and when she moves it hurts. And then she wants to drink. I don't know how to really do that, because she can't move her head. And okay, so I come up with a glass and water and a straw, and it kind of works, it's okay. And then she wants to go to the toilet. Uh-oh. How would I have no idea what I would do. Of course, it's a little bit messy, so when it becomes messy, I need to clean the sheets, everything is very, very painful. I have no idea what to do in that situation. Of course, a home care worker, it's a normal situation for a home care worker. It's a normal situation for a healthcare professional. It's quite a simple situation. I have no idea how to do it. So now you can see what we will need to develop in the next 10 years. I need knowledge at that moment of things that I never did before, and after a week or 2 weeks and the situation cleared up, I will never want to know about it again. So I need a just-in-time knowledge environment for healthcare activities. It's very simple when you talk about it, but it's on nobody's agenda. Nobody does that. We don't envision it. We say that the participation society is the answer because people will do things themselves. I often ask policymakers, how do you think that people will then do them? Well, by themselves. Yes, but how will they do them? By themselves. But that is not a solution. So we need to empower people. So you need to be aware of 5 things that you can do in relationship to healthcare and the public. One is creating awareness. The second one is, if I'm aware, I need to be willing to contribute to the solution. So the second one is motivation. The third one is that when I'm motivated to do something about it, I need to know what the options are. Then when I need to know what the options are, I need to have the ability to do so, and I need to know how to get the ability. So I want to commit suicide. I go to 113 online in the Netherlands, of course. I talk to somebody. Well, first of all, you don't talk to anybody. You can sign up for a talk, then you can talk to them, and then they give you phone numbers for therapists. There's not a phone number immediately. So, when you see the structure of these conversations is, first of all, I have to realize I have a problem, and then they say, well, okay, well, what might my problem be? And somebody says, well, it's maybe this or it's maybe that. What can you do about this problem? Well, you might do this or might do that. How do I do that? Where can I do it? So any solution that you work on for public health in the general public has a choice of these 5 qualities that you can then actually strive for. And you can do one, and you can also do this one, but it's a choice. So it depends really on what it is that you want. I brought a couple of citizens. These are citizens. This is a problem of integration in backward neighborhoods. This is a citizen that we worked for, zwerfjongeren. This is a citizen that we worked for, verslaving. This is a citizen that we worked for. We have a radio station, internet radio station for dementia. This is a citizen that we work for. We have series of apps for handicapped. So if you think about the public that you make your app for or you make your solution for, try to actually think about them, how they live their life. Are they uncertain? Are they not uncertain? Do they hate themselves for being sick, or do they not hate themselves? Are they smart or are they not smart? Try to get into their psychology, because then your solution becomes better. It's very simple to come up with an immediate solution, go like, I do this and this and this. But then go into the patient's head and into her life or into his life and see what is the problem of this mother. Mantelzorger's problems, if you go to the mezzo site, is the Mantelzorger's coordinating body. The Mantelzorger's problem has nothing to do with being a handicapped child. It's not a solution for the child being handicapped. Mantelzorger's problems is the pressure of doing this 24/7 every day of the week. That's an amazing pressure. And so this Mantelzorger has a whole series of problems that this kid doesn't have. This kid has problems, but the Mantelzorger has specific other problems. So the research into the problems and the psychological environment of the patient is really, you need to do that to come up with a really, really good solution. And I hope that the judges will actually take that into account. So what does that mean for the design? Well, there's several kinds of design. Because what is interesting about your challenge and the way that you take up the challenge is that there's a couple of you that are designers, so they have it kind of easy a little bit. But there's many of you that are not designers. And designing for people it's a profession. So you can find things on the internet, like for instance, you heard the term nudging right now. So that's what the people in Utrecht did. Very, 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 very important development. So you could read up on nudging. There's a very famous example of nudging in the UK where it started all out. They added one sentence. They added one sentence to the tax form. So people were sent tax forms that they needed to pay tax, and to figure out what would stimulate people most in paying taxes, they tried out very many different sentences, and the one sentence that won was that they just added a sentence to the tax form, not the form, but the fact that you had to pay certain money, and said, most people pay on time. That was the sentence. So you get the tax form, and then there's an amount here, an amount there, and sometimes you have to pay something, sometimes you get some. Most people pay on time. And it increased the return for the tax revenue body with about 30%. It's a single sentence, no investment at all, because they already sent a letter. So nudging, the fact that it's not explicit, that's what, I don't know if she's still here, but the girl from Utrecht just said, it's not explicit. But I don't even, you don't give me an idea, I kind of have the idea because there's the sentence. So reading up on these examples on the internet is really interesting because it might give you another angle to the problem that you're trying to solve. So that's about what I wanted to give you. I wanted to give you a couple of notions of the quick developments that take place in the next 10 years and what you might use. And if you don't use them, then the argument that the patient is really, let's say, somebody that has a certain kind of world, and in the world the challenges might be different than the way you envision them, because you envision them from your world. And so one of the things that designers really need to do to be really empathic. So I hope that may the best one win, actually. That's what I hope. Good luck.
Ja. Bert, dank je wel voor je mooie woorden. Lisette heeft nog een kleinigheidje voor je.
Helaas mogen wij geen flessen wijn meer weggeven, want we zijn er geen idee.
Oh, maar kijk water.
Maar we hebben een fles vodka ergens achter staan en dan ziet het eruit als water. Dat is wat we gaan doen. Maar niet vertellen. Nee, dankjewel Bert voor je inspirerende woorden.